Imagine this: you're holding a glass of French wine, wearing Italian leather shoes, your child's backpack, made in Spain, sits by the door, and tomorrow morning, all of these things will cost twice as much, not because of a war, not because of a pandemic, but because of two airplanes, two giants of the sky, locked in a battle so fierce it would drag entire continents into economic warfare for 17 years. This is the story of Boeing versus Airbus, but it's not just about planes, it's about pride, power, and the terrifying reality that sometimes the sky isn't big enough for everyone. Let's go back. 1970, Paris. The Americans owned the sky, Boeing was untouchable, every major airline in the world flew American planes. Pan Am, TWA, British Airways, all Boeing. The company wasn't just successful, it was a symbol of American dominance, of engineering superiority, of the future itself. But across the Atlantic, something was stirring. European nations, France, Germany, Britain, Spain, decided they were tired of watching America own the clouds. They formed a consortium, a partnership. They called it Airbus. At first, Boeing laughed. How could a group of European companies who had never built a commercial aircraft together compete with the titan of American aviation? It seemed impossible, ridiculous even. But then, 1988 happened. Airbus unveiled the A320, and everything changed. The A320 wasn't just another plane, it was revolutionary. Fly by wire technology, digital cockpits, more fuel efficient, more comfortable. Airlines looked at it and saw the future. And suddenly, Boeing wasn't laughing anymore, because for the first time in decades, they had real competition. By the early 1990s, Airbus wasn't just competing, it was winning. Now, here's where things get interesting, and by interesting, I mean ugly. In 1992, the United States and the European Union sat down and made a deal, the Large Civil Aircraft Agreement. The rules were simple. Both sides agreed to limit subsidies to their aircraft manufacturers. America would stop giving Boeing unfair advantages. Europe would do the same for Airbus. A gentleman's agreement, a peaceful coexistence in the sky. For 12 years, the agreement held, or at least it appeared to. But behind closed doors, something else was happening. Both sides were cheating. America was funneling money to Boeing through defense contracts and NASA research programs. Europe was giving Airbus billions in launch aid, low interest loans that never seemed to need repaying. Everyone was breaking the rules, but no one was talking about it. Until October 6, 2004. That's when America walked into the World Trade Organization and dropped a bomb. The United States formally accused the European Union of illegally subsidizing Airbus with $18 billion. $18 billion. The message was clear. The gloves were off. One day later, literally 24 hours, Europe fired back. They accused America of giving Boeing billions through military contracts and tax breaks. And just like that, the largest trade dispute in WTO history had begun. Picture this: lawyers, mountains of paperwork, accountants digging through decades of financial records. The WTO launched two parallel investigations, each side claiming innocence, each side pointing fingers. And the world watched as two economic superpowers prepared for commercial war. The investigations took years: 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and what they uncovered was stunning. The WTO found that Europe had given Airbus over $18 billion in illegal subsidies, launch aid for the A380 Super Jumbo, funding for the A350, infrastructure investments. The evidence was overwhelming. But here's the thing: Boeing wasn't innocent either. The WTO discovered that America had given Boeing billions through Washington state tax breaks, NASA research programs, and Pentagon contracts that had nothing to do with national defense. Both sides were guilty. Both sides had lied. But guilt doesn't matter in a trade war. What matters is who gets punished first. In 2019, the WTO gave America permission to impose tariffs on European goods worth $7.5 billion annually. Not on Airbus planes. Those were too expensive to tariff effectively. No, the tariffs hit wine, cheese, olives, whiskey, handbags, products that had absolutely nothing to do with airplanes. A French winemaker in Bordeaux woke up one morning to discover his exports to America would now cost 25% more. Not because of anything he did, but because two airplane companies couldn't play fair. In 2020, Europe got its revenge. The WTO authorized $4 billion in counter tariffs on American goods. Suddenly, American tractors, tobacco, and spirits were hit with crushing import taxes across Europe. And here's the devastating part: none of this hurt Boeing or Airbus. It hurt everyone else. Let me tell you about Jean-Marc, a cheesemaker in rural France. Third generation,
His family had been making Roquefort for 70 years. His cheese was famous in New York restaurants, Manhattan, Brooklyn, the finest tables in America. Then came the tariffs. His exports dropped 60%. Overnight, restaurants couldn't afford to buy his cheese anymore. He had to lay off workers, people he'd known his entire life, people whose parents had worked for his parents. Or take Sarah. She ran a small import business in Seattle, bringing in Italian handbags and Spanish ceramics. When the tariffs hit, her costs doubled. She tried to absorb the increases. She couldn't. Her business closed in 8 months. 23 employees lost their jobs. These weren't billionaire executives. These weren't politicians. These were ordinary people, caught in the crossfire of a war they didn't start and couldn't stop. And the cruelest irony? Boeing and Airbus kept selling planes. Airlines still needed aircraft. They still placed orders. The two companies barely felt the pain, but the winemakers did. The farmers did. The small business owners did. That's the thing about trade wars. The people who start them never feel the consequences. It's always someone else who bleeds. But let's step back, because this was never really about subsidies. It was about something much bigger. $3.1 trillion. That's the projected value of the global commercial aircraft market. By 2028, airlines around the world will need over 40,000 new planes in the next 2 decades. 40,000. And there are only two companies that can build them. Boeing and Airbus don't just make planes, they represent entire industrial ecosystems. Boeing supports over 1 million American jobs. Airbus supports hundreds of thousands across Europe. These companies are strategic assets, symbols of national power and technological supremacy. Losing the aircraft industry doesn't just mean lost revenue, it means lost influence, lost prestige, lost capability. And then there's China. In the background watching everything, China has been developing its own commercial aircraft, the Comac C919. It's not competitive yet, but it will be. And when it is, both America and Europe know they could lose everything. This wasn't just a trade dispute. It was a preview of the future. A future where economic competition between superpowers doesn't happen on battlefields, but in markets, in courtrooms, in tariff schedules and subsidy programs. The question was never who's right. The question was, who will dominate the skies for the next century? June 15, 2021, Brussels. President Joe Biden met with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. After 17 years, after billions in tariffs, after countless ruined businesses and broken lives, they announced a truce. The tariffs would be suspended for 5 years. Both sides agreed to work on new subsidy rules. The trade war for now was over. But here's what they didn't say. Nothing was actually resolved. The fundamental question, how much can governments support their strategic industries, remained unanswered. The agreement was a pause button, not a solution. Boeing still receives government support through defense contracts. Airbus still gets launch aid from European nations. The same system that started the war still exists. We're just pretending it doesn't. And everyone knows it. The diplomats know it. The executives know it. The workers who lost their jobs know it. So why the truce? Because both sides realized something terrifying. While they were fighting each other, China was catching up. Comac was improving. And if America and Europe destroyed each other in a prolonged trade war, there would be a third winner who never fired a shot. Sometimes you stop fighting your rival, not because you've won, but because you've noticed a bigger threat on the horizon.
So here we are. The Sky War is paused, but not over, never over. Because at the end of the day, this story isn't about planes, it's about us, about how governments prioritize national pride over ordinary people, about how economic competition can turn into economic violence, about how the people who start wars never pay for them. Jean-Marc still makes his cheese in France, but he'll never get back those years of lost sales. Sarah's import business is gone. Those jobs aren't coming back. And Boeing and Airbus, they're still here, still building planes, still competing, still receiving government support in ways we're not supposed to talk about. The truce of 2021 won't last forever. It can't, because the fundamental incentives haven't changed. Both sides still believe their survival depends on dominating the skies. So the next time you board a plane, whether it's a Boeing or an Airbus, remember this. Someone somewhere paid a price for that aircraft to exist, and it probably wasn't the company that built it. The Sky War taught us something important. In the age of globalization, there are no small conflicts. Everything connects. A subsidy in Seattle affects a winemaker in Bordeaux. A loan in Toulouse destroys a small business in Chicago. We live in a world where airplanes can start trade wars, where economic disputes can devastate entire industries that have nothing to do with the original argument. And the scariest part? This could all happen again tomorrow, next year. The moment either side believes it's losing, the tariffs will return, the investigations will restart, and somewhere, an ordinary person who just wants to sell their cheese or import their handbags will wake up to discover their life has been destroyed by a conflict they never knew existed. That's the world we live in now, where the sky isn't just a place for planes, it's a battlefield, and we're all caught in the crossfire,